Hello, welcome to episode 39 of the Brew from the Bothy podcast. My name is Fay. Hopefully you've got a brew and you're ready to sit and chat all things knit and crochet with me. I've got quite a bit to take you through. It's been an interesting couple of weeks because I've been doing a lot of video recording of a blanket tutorial that I would like to get onto YouTube so I can show you a finished object. You've seen it before, but I've got it to a finalised point. And what else is going on? There's all sorts. I'll just dig in and crack on with it. But I'm having to record a little bit early because I need to go away for a couple of days. But it's the 17th of August now, and the next time I podcast, it's going to be the 2nd of September. And my brain has this thing whereby we kind of get to the 1st of September and I hit into autumn mode, and the weather just changed here a little bit overnight. We actually got some rain, which was delightful, and it just is like I'm kind of ready for it to be a little bit cooler, for autumn to be here, for there to be a little bit more snuggling. I really like that part of the season when I get to sit outside. I put our big parasol thing up and over me, and I don't mind that it's a little bit cooler. I run hot, so I'm always happy to be out there, and I just like it when it gets dusk and I can hear all the birds going, roosting, getting ready for going to bed, and it's like the marker of the season for me, the 1st of September, so I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, what a difference 2 weeks will make from being full-blown summer. Like, we had 36 degrees last week and we're down to, I think, 19 today. So, like, the temperature swings have been quite full on. Let's show you then what is on my hook. Obviously, you've seen this already. We're quite booby today. I might pull that up a little bit, but I'm heading south and it's going to be really hot. So I was like, let's... wear minimal clothing. So I've managed to get a little bit in on my Agate blanket. It hasn't been a massive couple of weeks for doing loads of work. I took last week off, but not to have a holiday. I was doing loads of DIY jobs in the house because they were just like, every room had a little 5% that needed to be done on it to either touch it up or to finish something off. So I spent a week just doing that, but it meant that I was so knackered at the end of most nights that I had 2 nights where I didn't even craft. That never happens. I try to get in at least a couple of hours of crafting, and more if I can fit it in. So for me to have 2 nights on the trot where I did no crochet, no knitting, was really unusual. My hands were a bit fidgety. So I don't have loads of progress on my Agate blanket, but I did some calculations earlier and worked out that I am now over a third of the way through it, which I'm really pleased with. What's interesting with these colours, let me show you. This is the next colour that's coming in, and I think every time I've added a new colour, I've put the two side by side and gone, you're basically the same colour. But it's only when I see them all together that I can see that, like, there's such a nice difference, but it's very subtle in the changes, apart from maybe these two are a bit more apparent, but the rest of the way through the changes have been so subtle that when I've seen the next skein I've been like, I don't think there's enough change there, but actually there really is. So this is the last of the kind of purpley blues that's going in, and then after this one, which is I think my 10th one, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, yeah, this is the 10th colour, then I'm going into like the darker blues, a little bit more stormy, and then into the greens and teals. So this is really the last of the colours that I like, but I'm not like in love with, and then I'm into colours that I just adore, and I'm loving the rhythm of this blanket and just the change up of the stitches, those little filet ones. We've got 2 in each of the colour bands, and they really speed up because you're only doing a chain in between and then a bigger stitch, so they feel like out of every 8 rows I've got 2 that are much speedier. So like in terms of intrigue and just continuing through the project, it feels like a really happy project to work on. So I'm enjoying that. This is the next one to be smooshed in, and we'll see how far I get this week. I also have this week off, but I'm actually having holiday. I'm going south to pick up my best friend's 2 kids, bringing them north, and we're off doing adventures every day during the rest of this week. So it does mean there's quite a lot of time in the car that I'm driving, and then hopefully I can ask Matthew to drive once I've brought the kids back up, and I can get in a load of car crochet and car knitting. That's my hope, that I can get some time off and do some crafting, not just do DIY. So that's the Agate blanket. That is going to continue. I really got a shock when I worked out that I was over 33% of the way through the stripes. That doesn't include the border, because I've got an idea for the border, but I don't yet know exactly how that's going to work up. So I am pretty chuffed with that, to be honest. And I'm loving it. So even though it's a really big project, I'm really enjoying getting my hands and hook into it. And that yarn is delightful. If you ever come across 50% wool blend, something like a merino, a corriedale, or a blueface Leicester, and 50% silk, just buy it. If you can afford it, just buy it. It is definitely at the luxurious end. I quite often see it as a blend available on Vinted. The stitch definition that you get with it in crochet is just so beautiful. I don't think I'd make a garment out of it because the drape is really something. But for like a really luxurious blanket or a shawl or like a cowl, I just think it would be amazing because it feels so beautiful and smooth and silky. It's just lovely to work with. Not at all splitty. This one's got quite a high twist on it. So if you've never worked with it before and you're not sure you're going to like it, it's just luxurious and soft and silky and beautiful, and the stitch definition is gorgeous. So if you find it on Vinted or eBay or somewhere, buy it. It's lush. That is everything, I think, for On My Hooks. It definitely is. One of the projects that is off my hooks, you have seen this before, but I finally finished it up. I was making video tutorials of this blanket. This is for said best friend's oldest child. It's the fall into winter blanket, and I've made it with Drops Charisma. It's made up in 4 panels, and I got it to the state where I'd made the 4 panels, and then I needed to hold this project back to show off in the video tutorial that I've been recording how the whole thing pieces together, how you join the panels together, and how you add the border as well. So I've pretty much recorded most of that now. I've got a bit more to do next week. And then there will be a free video tutorial when I've done all of the editing, but all of this stuff takes a long time to pull together. But I'm pretty pleased the way that his blanket worked up. So this is another finished object, but actually also another Christmas present finished off. I've never done so much making of Christmas gifts in my life. Like, I'm generally not a massive maker for other people. I make for myself because I understand the worth of what I make, and I don't want to make for people that don't understand the challenge, the cost of yarn, the cost of my time. Although I derive enjoyment from it, I also only want to make for people that appreciate it, and I know will appreciate it. And Jenny's eldest asked for a blanket last summer instead of socks. I don't think he knows how much longer a blanket takes from socks, but never mind. So he's got a blanket, his brother's got a blanket, and I need to crack on with the blanket for his mum and for his dad. So pretty happy with that. I've used up loads of the Drops Charisma that I had, and I only have a little bit left over, so that feels really good that I'm not carrying loads of extra yarn through from this project. But that is Fall into Winter Blanket. It is available free of charge on my website. I've popped links into the drop down box. You can also pay for a paid for PDF if you want, like, let me show you. Within the paid for PDF, there's a full table that you can tick off for every panel, for every row. It shows you all the stripes. And if you've never seen one of my patterns before, this is the kind of detail that I like to add, because I have a very dopamine loving brain, and by ticking off the different rows really makes me focus in on a project and want to do the next and the next and the next. So wherever it's applicable for a project, for a design, that's the kind of thing that I add in for it. And that's why there's a difference between the paid for pattern and the free pattern. When you pay for it, you get the extra bits that I think take it from a good pattern to a great pattern. The writing is all the same, you know what I mean, you just get extra elements. So fall into winter, done. 2 Christmas blankets, done. One of them is about a quarter of the way through and the other one I haven't started yet. So I still have a lot of work to do on Christmas presents, Christmas blankets. That is, oh, I meant to say, because I promised that I would tell you how much everything cost. That blanket was just over 730 grams in total, and at the highest end that I can buy Drops Charisma in the UK, that means it tops out at £34 for that entire blanket for a 100% wool blanket. I think that's an amazing price. So, and I also really enjoyed working with the Drops Charisma. It blocked out quite a lot because it's made of linen stitch, so it wanted to stretch and go quite far, but pretty chuffed with the end result with that. So next up is on my needles, and that is the Mr. Casual sweater. I showed you this last time round, this very lovely raglan jumper. I'm making this for Matthew, my husband. He's been waiting a very long time for me to knit him a jumper, and I'm making it in Rowan Valley tweed, which I talked about last time because I wanted to wash the skeins to see if it would soften up quite a bit and make it a bit more like the swatch was. So I did exactly that. I washed lots of the skeins in, kept them in skein form and washed them, and then dried them. They dried really quickly because obviously we've had such amazing hot weather. And then once they were dry, I just balled up a load of them. I've got more to wash if I need them, but the difference in this yarn, it feels more structured after washing, and it's a lot softer. This was quite a, it's not that it was a harsh yarn, it just felt really dry and coarse, and this is a lot softer to work with, making it a much nicer project to have on my needles and have running through my fingers. So what I hadn't recognised, because I was naughty and didn't really read ahead in the pattern, I just went, that's the one that will do, make the numbers work. What I hadn't realised is that it's actually a bottom up raglan jumper, which I've never done before. I've done a couple of raglan bits before, but always top down. So initially I was like, oh, that's so much ribbing to do and there's so many stitches to cast on. But actually I flipped it round in my brain to think, well, I've now started with the worst part of the jumper, which is the ribbing. Like, how often do you get through the quick increases that you do, and then you split for the sleeves, and then the body feels a lot quicker because usually it's just stocking stitch, and you can just like drill around and do all of that and then pick up the sleeves, and then you get to the end and you've got to do like 5 or 6 centimeters of ribbing 1 by 1 or 2 by 2, and it feels like it takes forever, and it does take forever. But I quite like the fact that I've almost finished this ribbing already, and then everything else feels a little bit easier. So I'm quite enjoying this technique. I just need to make sure that I get the measurements right from the body to the underarm, because that I think is probably easier to do from top down, because you can try it on and see how that goes. So I need to just be a bit mindful of that when I'm actually making it. I had no difference between my unblocked and blocked swatch in terms of the number of rounds per 10 centimetres. There was a very slight change in the number of stitches. So that's helpful because it means that when I put it up against Matthew's torso, I don't have to calculate what the difference will be from the fabric that I've got to the fabric that I'm going to get when I've washed and blocked it. So I don't have any work to do on that. That's really helpful. And then the other benefit that I thought of today is that we're going to be camping for a couple of days, and because you work the bottom up, you do exactly the same with the sleeves. So I can, instead of taking my big project and having to take the body of the jumper away for camping, I can actually just take a much smaller bag and I can start one of the sleeves, which you can't do when you're doing top down. So I can really see that there are benefits of doing both constructions. Whether this would be knit or crochet, the same thing would apply. So that's a really helpful thing, and it also means that I will have worked the sleeves, and then if you're working it top down, you have this point where you've probably already worked all of the body, and then you have to work the sleeves and keep on working in the round with the bulk of the jumper on there as well. So by working bottom up, I don't have that issue where I'm having to keep on moving a jumper around for a while for both sleeves. So pros and cons of both, but I will feed back on how I feel about the kind of bottom up raglan. But for now, I'm really quite enjoying it. So hopefully I can get through some sleeve knitting in the car and when we're off camping and up in the lakes where it's a lot cooler and they've got a lot more rain. Who knew? That's why they call it the Lake District. So loving it, much preferring this wool now that I have washed it. I think depending on future yarns that I'm working with, I would look to wash the skeins, particularly if it's skein, and I'm thinking about other ones that might apply to, maybe the likes of West Yorkshire Spinners Croft. I would now wash. Some of the John Orban yarns I would now wash because it just plumps up and makes it nicer to work with. So yeah, good tip. Didn't take very long to dry, didn't take very long to wash, wasn't a big hassle, it was pretty easy to do, to be honest. More on that project in 2 weeks' time. Maybe I'll have a finished sleeve. That might be wishful thinking. I have 2 small boys to entertain. That's it for On My Needles. So, coming to my needles, thank you for blanket suggestions last time round. The one that I have chosen was a suggestion, and it's called the Bits and Bobs blanket, and it is by Kay Jones. This is perfect. This is exactly what I was looking for. I knew you lot would have the answer for me. So can you see that? It looks like it's ribbed, but it's not. And you can you hold scraps double. I will end up holding mine treble, but you can just keep on going until you've used up a certain amount of something. This blanket is absolute perfection for what I'm after. So, Bits and Bobs blanket, I bought it from Lovecrafts. It's also available on Ravelry. I've put the Lovecrafts link down below, and it was £4.75. There's also a cowl, so if you had smaller scraps that you wanted to work up, there's a Bits and Bobs cowl that you can buy as well. But I love the fact that it looks ribbed, but there is no purling. It's exactly what I needed. This, like, you couldn't have given me a better suggestion for this blanket than this one. It is perfect, and it has an I-cord bind off on it, which I will see if I want to do. I might swap that out for a crochet bind off, just because it can look the same as an I-cord. If I do a round of double crochet, single crochet US, and then double slip stitch, really looks like an I-cord. It's much faster than on a cord bind off as well. So this is coming, I don't know when, but I really need to crack on with this because this is Fraser's blanket and I have to get it finished before December. So I might have a tinker and do a little bit of swatching and see how it works out and what gauge I want to get with it and where I'm happy with the fabric, because the yarn that I want to use is the Plotter Loopy and it's a lot more fragile, so I need to make sure that I'm not one, making it too dense, or two, making it too loose. I need to get it, I need to 3-bears this and get it just right. So more on this one, but thank you so much for your suggestions. And just to say, like, I do read what you send to me and I do take note of it, so keep the comments going. I know I need to catch up on comments. It's just been a doozy of a couple of weeks. But thank you very much for that. So that brings me on to Off My Needles. I have a finished object. I finished my Rockhopper. Let me show you this. There is a right side and a wrong side to it. I am so pleased that I kept this green and went with it. I'm so pleased with the finished object. It's pretty big. The wingspan is just over 150, which is like the minimum that I would look for in a shawl to make sure that it goes round and I've got enough of a tail either side to keep it on me. My preference is between about 150 and 180. This gives me just over 150. I love how the fabric worked out and loved the construction. If you are in the market for a simple but slightly complex project and you love shawls and you love the look of this one, I would say just go and get it. One of the things that I hadn't appreciated is that this border is added on. I'm going to add some photos to give you context for this. But the border is added on and you pick up all of the stitches and then you're working short rows back and forth to basically add this extra triangle wedge in here for each bit, and it is done beautifully. And what it means is, although you have to pick up all of these stitches all the way along and you're picking up in the troughs and then up to the peaks for each one, because you're then working short rows along the top, you're binding off as you go. So you never have, I think it was like 300 and something, 350 stitches. You don't have 350 stitches to bind off at the top of the shawl. And you've got this lovely squidgy, stretchy edge. There's no like garrotting bind off. There's no Italian sewn bind off to do. It's just really lovely and simple. And let me show you how beautiful it looks. You get this kind of lined texture here. I really think this is such a clever project. Clever with eyelets, clever with the way they use the mitered square, clever with the way that you add the border at the end. I think if you're looking for different colour options, you could do this, what is yarn B, which is the lighter coloured stripe. You could do in a variegated yarn and it would really make it look different. I wanted the boldness and graphic nature of having 3 semi-solid colours. But if you put this one to like a very light variegated yarn, I think it would look really good. Love this shawl, gonna love wearing it. I tried it on earlier to see how I would wear it, and my feeling was I would do it kind of asymmetric over one shoulder. I did a way of doing it earlier so that you actually saw some of the green coming down as well on both sides, but it's big enough that it would very happily go over one of my winter coats or still go under my winter coat. And because it's garter stitch and I used quite a large gauge on it, I also feel like it's warm enough, but I'd get enough breeze coming through it as well, so it wouldn't just like overheat me. And I really love these colours. This like chestnutty brown in particular, with the foresty green. I love it. This one is kind of one of my colours, but only because it's so close to my skin tone. Only because I'm bumping it up against this chestnutty brown. In terms of the amount of yarn used, on the yarn A, which is the chestnutty brown, I used pretty much a full 100 gram skein. I was a bit naughty and forgot to measure all of the yarn before I started the project, but I had 7.6 grams of this one left. On this one I had 34 grams left, so I'd used 66, and on the border one yarn B I had 53 grams left, so I'd used 47. So if you've got a full skein and a couple of kind of skeins that you don't have a full 100 grams of, you could potentially make this shawl too. Rockhopper by Maltz, links are below. You can buy this as an individual pattern on Ravelry only, and yeah, thoroughly recommend. It was such a fun, fascinating, clever knit. Like this is the kind of knitting design that I wish my brain would have come up with, because the treatment of adding this border into the mitered squares is so clever and easy to do and really enjoyable. So Rockhopper is ready for me to wear all autumn and all winter long. It's so nice, so different as well. I feel like shawls are getting their day again, like shawl designs are having their comeback. I feel like they went out of fashion for a little bit, in the same way that I think buying project bags did, and I think project bags are on that 10-year cycle of coming back in again. And then next it will be pin badges again, and who knows what else. But I feel like shawls and project bags are having their moment in the sun again, and I'm here for it. I love a good project bag, and I also love a shawl. That leaves me with, I think, we've done off my needles, we've come into my needles, we've done on my needles. That leaves me with a little bit of incoming yarn. I went on Saturday. We've got 2 yarn shops in my local area, and the second one opened a year ago in February, and for some reason I just hadn't managed to get over there. And for my Mr. Casual sweater, I needed to get some fixed 2.5mm needles, so I went there first just so I could go and say hello and check out the shop. Managed to get the needles, but also discovered that they had the Luca S Wool and Walk sock yarn. So I bought a couple of different colours that I'd had my eye on. This one is called, what was it? Petal Sprinkle. It is colour 215, and it is pretty much undyed sock yarn with little blips of like a raspberry pink, a jade green, and there's a little bit of yellow in there, but I don't think you really see it. And then the darkest of the colours is like a slaty blue colour. And then I got the matching raspberry pinky red colour to go, which is called Wineberry, and that is colour 39. So I really like this sock yarn, and I wanted to spend a little bit of money in one of my local yarn shops, so I picked these up. These will probably be socks for Jenny, because the jade and the pink and this pink are absolutely in her wheelhouse. So while she's getting a Christmas blanket, she might also get a pair of Christmas socks, because she really feels the cold, especially on her feet, and she is very sock worthy, is my bestie. So these will probably be nice socks for her. Whether she gets them on Christmas Day or not is another measure, but I've popped all of the details for this down below if you want to check it out. It is appearing in so many yarn shops at the moment. I asked the the yarn shop owner about it, and I was like, where have they come from? They've suddenly just sprung up from everywhere. And she basically said that they were thread manufacturers and they've launched into doing yarns as well. So although they're a long-standing company, they've just diverted slightly from just doing threads to also doing yarns. That is why they are suddenly a thing. So I'm very happy about that. Also, not that I want to start rumours, but it looks like there's something going on with West Yorkshire Spinners. I had a look last week to see if I could get an answer, but I'm not entirely sure what is happening with West Yorkshire Spinners, whether they're going to go into production again, whether somebody's going to buy them out. So this for me is a really good alternative for West Yorkshire Spinners signature 4-ply. It's a really lovely yarn. It isn't British made, which is a shame, but it is made within the EU, and it's supporting for me a UK company, which is quite important. When I can, I do, and I can buy it in a local yarn shop, so I can do like a double whammy of being purposeful with my purchases. So yeah, if you also are going to lament the potential demise of West Yorkshire Spinners signature 4-ply, this I thoroughly recommend as a good yarn sub for it. I think that is everything. I would love to know, if you're Northern Hemisphere, it might just still be far too hot where you are, but have you got like the tingle of excitement for September? Like, I don't think I would care if it was like 30 degrees on the 1st of September. My brain would automatically go, it's autumn. Let's go. It's autumn. Let's make all the woolly things. I get so excited for this next season change and all the potential that it brings. I'm very excited for it. Are you the same, or is it just still far too flaming hot where you are? Let me know. Right, lovely folks, I am going to scoot because I need to edit, and then I need to hop in the car and drive for 4 hours and then cool off in the beach, in the sea. As ever, thank you for coming and spending time with me and having a little brew and coming and hearing about what I've been up to. It's always lovely to have you here. Until 2 weeks' time, thank you so much. I will see you then. I am waving.